This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
What is going on, and welcome to Take on the World Lockup, where we take a deep dive into the famous, infamous, and bizarre prisons around the world. What is going on, and welcome to Take on the World Lockup. In our lockup series, we've looked at one of the strangest jails in the world, which was the Squirrel Cage Jail. We've looked at one of the most secure prisons in the world, and that's ADX Florence, and one of the toughest prisons in the world with the Black Dolphin Prison in Russia. Today, we're going to look at what may be the smallest jail in the world. One of the smallest islands in the Channel Islands, Sark Island, measures only 3 miles by 1 mile and has a population of about 500 people. Nestled between the coast of Normandy, France, and Great Britain, this island has a long and rich history considering its tiny size. Its first mention is in a text from the 11th century when it was gifted to the Mont Saint Michael Abbey by William of Normandy. In the 16th century, the French captured the island. After that, it was captured by the British. The island was used by pirates and smugglers throughout history. The Germans occupied it as part of the sea defense for the Nazis in World War II. The German soft occupation was a relatively civilized one, with German soldiers often treated more as visitors than invaders, and they were invited to dine with the locals in their homes. After the war, the island settled into a rustic feel with an old world charm. There were no cars, no streetlights, nor roads on the island, and no airports. The island is accessible only by boat. The only way to get around was by walking, biking, horse-drawn carriage, or by horseback. There are tractors on the island, and it's one of the only places in the world where emergency vehicles are pulled by tractor or horses. Today, Sark is administered as part of the Bailiwick of Guernsey, a self-governing dependency of the British Crown. The island is not part of the United Kingdom, although the United Kingdom government has certain responsibilities for the Bailiwick. You're going to want to go to deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Tell him, Mikey.
And check out all the great podcasts. This is a great group of podcasters. There's some really talented and informative podcasts on the network. I suggest you check them all out. Deluxeeditionnetwork.com. While you're at deluxeeditionnetwork.com, you'll want to check out the Spotlight podcast. Every month there's 2. This month, for the month of August, one of them is the Broken System podcast. And Johnny,
have you ever watched a crime show where they got it completely wrong, where they chase down the wrong leads, where they do everything wrong, and you know as that person affected by that crime that they are completely misled, but they won't do anything about it, and they're wrong?
So, yeah, that's what they check. What happens if a killer goes free and the wrong person gets convicted?
Yeah, that happens all the time, man. I'm telling you.
Robert Palmer covers all those cases. The second Spotlight podcast is Quid Pro Quo.
Quid?
No, Quad. But it's inspired by the Quid Pro Quo of Silence of the Lambs. It's hosted by a couple and their neighbors, and one of them picks a movie, and the rest of them go about. He tries to convince them that this is why the movie's good, and then in the end, they all give their opinion on the movie. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't. Just like you and I don't always agree, but it's entertaining. I listen to this one when I'm mowing, and I enjoy it. It's always fun. So check them out: Quid Pro Quo and the Broken System podcast, Spotlight podcast for the month of Augusta. The Sark prison that stands today is not the original prison. The first prison was built to defend the island against invasion soon after the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. It was necessary to create a place to hold captives and enemy prisoners. During those times, there was one porter or jailer on the island to stand guard and manage the prisoners and prevent escape. Many crimes at the time, the accused were put into stocks rather than the jail. When an accused was sentenced to jail time, they were only allowed to be held in the prison for a maximum of 2 days. For more severe offenses, the accused was sent to Guernsey prison and the court system. In the early 1800s, The original prison was deemed unfit, and there was an interim prison used until a new one could be built. In 1832, the Guernsey courts ordered a new prison to be built, but due to budgetary constraints, it took nearly 20 years to begin construction. The new prison was built in 1856 and is still in operation today. It is a stone building with a barreled roof. The jail has no windows and only 2 cells with a narrow hallway between them. One cell is 6 foot by 6 foot, and if you're lucky enough to get the second cell, it's 6 foot by 8 foot. Each cell has a wood slatted bed with a thin mattress. In the smaller cell, I could not even lay outstretched because it was so small. My head and feet would hit the walls. One of the earliest known inmates in this prison was a servant girl who was accused of stealing a pocket handkerchief from her mistress. She spent 3 days in jail. However, she was terrified of being locked in a dark cell, so she was allowed to pull a chair to the open door and sit in the doorway. During her incarceration, local ladies came and sat with her, knitting and talking until her time was complete. This story would not be complete without mentioning the last serious crime committed on Sark Island. In 1990, a French nuclear physicist, André Gardez, claimed to be the rightful heir and lord of Sark. He rode across from France to the island of Sark with a semi-automatic rifle in his hand to invade the island of Sark. He arrived on Sark 1 day prior to his planned invasion and promptly posted notices all over the island with his plan to take over. The single constable on the island saw the notices and prepared for the invasion. The next day, the self-proclaimed lord armed himself with his rifle and began his attack. He was quickly met by the constable, who punched him in the face and put an end to his reign before it started. Today, the police force on the island is minimal, with a constable and a vingtier, also called the constable's assistant. A deputy constable is on staff as a permanent fixture at the prison to help with paperwork and manage the small details of the prison. Elections on the island are very simple, with a vingtier elected every year. Once that year is complete, the vingtier becomes the new constable, and a new vingtier is elected. The Sark Prison is located right next to the visitor center on the island. Crime is rare on Sark these days, but on occasion, a tourist or worker gets drunk and out of hand and has to be placed into jail until they sober up. If you're listening to this, please go to our YouTube channel and check out the video. I'll have pictures up of this small prison. If you like what you hear on this lockup series, please give us a like, consider subscribing, and if there's a jail or prison you would like us to cover, shoot us an email, leave a comment, or hit us up on our socials. Thank you. We've took on the world's smallest jail. Now you go take on the world, but don't get locked up doing it.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.